If you're a person anywhere in this country who wants to see things change at your shelter, where do you begin? Like if you have a shelter that is, a managed intake and they aren't helping their public and they keep their doors closed, and if they're full, they're full, and the animals maybe sit there for months and potentially years, and you're just a person that volunteers or an advocate or somebody who stopped by and you want to see things change, where do you even begin?
Well, first of all, I have a video on point. That's one of the videos in the series is
Okay.
reforming municipal shelters and what volunteers can realistically do. And my big piece of advice is spend a lot of time understanding what is and why it is. Volunteers a lot of times go in and they just want to change it all immediately. And to me, it's really important. The people at the shelter didn't develop things to be mean to animals. These things grew up organically based on conditions that were being seen, on tweaks that were made, and it's a whole fabric. If when you tweak this thing over here, I have to tell you this thing's going to move.
Right.
It's not just that one thing. And so go in, understand as an initial step, and spend a lot of time understanding. Um, but then start thinking about what would be the signs in my community that stray animals are not being dealt with in a safe and humane way, that vulnerable people are being hurt by shelter policies. And so for me, I wanted to look at reclaims of stray animals. Were we seeing increases in stray animals as owner surrenders went down? And what was happening to that reclaim rate? That reclaim rate should stay fairly static if you don't change if you don't make it cheaper to reclaim, if you don't start doing new advertising for reclaiming. Some percentage of your stray animals get reclaimed as your background rate.
Hmm.
What's happening now? What's happening with the stray rate? People don't abandon their animals easily. They abandon their animals if they can't do anything else. So if you're getting animals in, especially with ID, and they're not getting reclaimed at higher rates than in the past, that's one data point. Another data point would be, like I said, cleanup of dead animals.
Hmm.
What did that look like when the shelter was open admission? Who cleans up dead animals that are out there, dogs and cats? And what does it look like now? Dog bites. Dog bites are subjective. Some people will go to an emergency room or a doctor, some won't. But what's happening with dog bites? Because when there are abandoned or routinely straying dogs in your community, they get desperate. And they are domestic animals. They are more apt to go near people than to avoid them. It's not like a feral cat where if you have a feral cat problem, you might not know it because you know what? They're basically wild animals and they hide from you.
Yeah.
It's the domestic cats that have been abandoned that you probably see a lot more of,
Right.
honestly. But what's going on with negative interactions between members of the public and stray dogs and cats? Because a stray dog that is used to having a home is going to go near people looking for food. That's not going to go well because they're going to tip over garbage cans. So you're going to see more bites. You're going to see more complaints. You're going to see more gun discharges, frankly. What's going on with people complaining about their pet cats if they let them roam outside with their pet cats disappearing? That's actually a sign that you have increased predators in your community. Might be coyotes and things like that, which is fine. That's a wild animal. Might be your dogs. What about try and figure out with single car crashes? Check with your transportation department, see if they have any stats on this. Um, for me, it was looking at shelter records and trying to think about pregnant animals. We have such a strong free spay neuter program. We had gotten our puppy impounds down by something like 40% through a very targeted spay neuter program. And suddenly they started going back up. So, what's going on with that? And these are the things I can look to and start talking. Sit in your lobby. I sat in my lobby. I've been in that lobby for hundreds of hours. I have heard so many conversations when people are trying to surrender animals. I saw conflict rising. There was so much more conflict between the public and shelter staff when it was managed intake because that person who can't keep their animal, they're desperate. They've tried everything. Most of these people are not trying the shelter as their first way to rehome an animal. They've already asked their friends, they've already asked their family. They figured out, can I keep it hidden if I'm not allowed to have it in my lease? And so when they're at the shelter, they are at the end of that road. And a lot of times there's a lot more aggression and anger. So what's going on with that? That really impacts, that shows the impact on your community of the intake policy. And that affects your staff. And that, I think, can be a conversation with management. Like, this conflict is unhealthy for everyone, not just the animals, but for the people involved. And for me, a lot of times advocates go into situations trying to change minds based on animal welfare. And I think animal welfare is very important. I've dedicated my life to it. I've got 5 dogs here. I would not have 5 dogs here if that was not important to me. Um, I would not have moved across the country. I quit my very, very secure, very nice job and moved across the country to try and start a new animal welfare division if it was not very important to me. But I think that when you're talking to people who might be inclined to think you're overly emotional, or that you're prioritizing animals over humans, whether they're staff or community members, it's very important to think, what things do they understand and care about? And that's always going to be public safety, public health, and the impact on vulnerable people in the community. And so thinking through, what is about my community can I look to see the impact on those, not going in with an assumption of those things must be worse, but go in and say, I've got 2 distinct time periods, pre-managed admission, managed admission. And frankly, I really ignore 2020 to 2023 if I'm comparing things outside of that time. I think it's fine to look inside of that time, but outside of that time, that was a weird time, or at least 2020 through 2022. COVID disrupted everything. We had the pre-COVID period, we have COVID, and we have coming out of COVID, post-COVID. And so you have to take it with a grain of salt if you're comparing those timeframes. But think about public safety, public health indicators, and vulnerable people and the impact on them, the homeless, people who are so tangentially vulnerably housed that they are on the verge of losing it. What's going on with your housing community? We saw our trailer parks go to not allowing outside animals. That means all the big dogs came into the shelter. We had one family brought in 6 pit bulls. We have another one that brought in 5 gnarly German Shepherd Husky mixes. And I say gnarly because I have one of them and he is the perfect dog, but he is the perfect dog because he is an inbred Husky. He is not a regular Husky, so he's not your brightest dog. Huskies are too smart for me. But look at these sorts of things and say, what factors in my community can I look to and where can I get that data? And just start having conversations. Don't have, you need to change this, but it said, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Let's talk about it. Can we tweak things? Like me saying, I want to spay and neuter the animals, that if people are calling to surrender them, I want you to offer them a free spay neuter surgery. How can I make this easy for you? So it's not, you have to call me and then I have to call the vet and then I have to call you back. And now you have to call the person. And now we have to figure out, can they come in? No, it's got to be, just give the offer, make them an offer. Here are the days you can do it. Put it on our bill and just do it. But how can we make this stuff easy and just sort of see, what does this affect? Does this make things better? Does it make them worse? Because sometimes things make them worse, even if you think it'll make it better. And then is there a next step? How can we do the next step? And just keep those lines of communication open. When you're flaming on Facebook, when you're yelling at people, when you are insisting you're right, I don't think you get very far.
Yeah.
But when you're understanding why things are the way they are, thinking critically about what factors can I get information about, you've got a better chance. I'm not going to say that you're guaranteed to make a difference, but to affect big change, but you have a much better chance of affecting big change. I think of going public as the bridge burning stage. If you are going public, it's really, with any inflammatory accusations, it's really hard to turn back. And so just be careful that you have tried what you can. When we actually went public with concerns in 2019, as I think I mentioned, and the shelter got overhauled, but I started those conversations in early 2018. I spent a year and a half, and I'd been in the shelter every day for more than 4 years, just about every day, not every day, but just about every day for about 4 years prior to that time, learning how it was operating, going on ride-alongs with animal control officers to understand the community conditions. Because I have to say, my community's conditions were very different when I actually went out there and participated in calls and saw what was going on than I thought they were when I was just coming into the shelter or living in this community.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. Well,
The number, yeah.
Such good advice because the data collecting is so and so important because just like you said, you and I care so much about these animals, but the decision makers often see it from a different angle. And so when you can come to them with concrete data and this is what we're seeing and whatever, but also the
And
advice of
solutions.
yes,
Solutions.
yes. And coming with that's so critical is to have a solution to not just a problem. And I think the idea of like getting in there and learning the history and learning what's happening is really important because for me, when I first started going to the shelters, I had this idea based on, fostering 100 dogs and like how this was going to be, right? Thinking I knew it, I must know it, but I only knew one little piece of it. It's like, the whole that thing with an analogy with the elephant where you just touch one piece of it and that's what you think it is. It's the same thing. Like you've got to understand the whole situation and not make assumptions. And as you said, create a dialogue. Let's talk about this. Let's try to figure it out. Let's not come in there guns blazing. Let's come in there and ask questions and try to learn and try to understand and try to figure out what's really going on here. And to do that, you do need data because otherwise you're just going to go with your own assumptions about stuff. So this is super helpful.